All right, be right there. Was that? Okay. Ken, what's up, my friend? How are you?
I am good, man. Juggling everything on a early Friday morning is like pretty crazy. Juggling.
It's 9 o'clock already, man. I've been up since 3. What are you talking about? It's been 6 hours.
You know, I'm not as youthful as you. Okay, I'm only.
This is true. You got at least 10 years on me.
Well, and you have more of the hair than I do right now. It's more of yours. It's kind of like
it's called a blow dryer. If you need some of that, you can.
I don't know. You're doing that whole kid and play modern type of thing.
This is a full on though. So it's like.
Oh, you're full on BA Baracus right now.
This is a proper show here. Yeah, but tomorrow we do the color, and then the show's in a week. So.
Oh, nice. Well, good luck on that one.
Looking forward to it being over with. Sure. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Created Briefs. This is our weekly recap and analysis of the top news from the creator economy. We do go live on Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific time, much to Ken's chagrin. This is episode 14 of this show, plus what did we pass on the other one? I think we've done like 53.
Yeah, 23 on Wednesday's show, but then you tack on office created hours, which is the office hours show.
Yeah, so we've probably done about 50 videos. Pretty good this year so far. Speaking of shows, we do get together 3 times a week. So depending on the kind of thoughts or advice you might want, you can either join us on Tuesdays for office hours, on Wednesdays for our interviews with builders and creators, or on Fridays for the news, which you're probably seeing right now. Do give us a follow if you don't mind, though. We are Created Economy almost everywhere. So head over to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, not Facebook, Flipboard, or Twitch. We appreciate your follow. By the way, the official coin of the Created Economy is the AMA coin. And we are doing a drop. Actually, we may have given them all out already. I don't know, but give it a scan and let me know if you, if for some reason you aren't able to claim some. Let me know. I'm still happy to send you some. But you can head over to bit.ly/AMA-drop-10 to grab some AMA. It is free money, people. Go get it. It's corrected, and by the way, it's connected directly to Ken's ATM card. So,
so which means there's literally nothing left in there right now.
It's double the win. We also do
double
have
of zero.
But we do have a Slack where builders and other friends get together to chat and sort of keep the conversation going throughout the week. Feel free to head over to our Slack. It's bit.ly/created-slack. And let's not do that yet. So Ken, what's up? Let's get to the news. I know we've got more than 10 stories as per usual.
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like people just decide to dump a whole bunch of news every week, and you're like, oh, how do you whittle them down? It's just like there's so much stuff that's all related to everything that we talk about in previous shows, or we talk with our guests on Wednesdays. It's insane. But our first topic, our first article here involves Pinterest. We've talked about a lot about Pinterest getting more involved in the creator space. In a different kind of approach than what you would see with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Well, Instagram as well, and Snap and everything like that, and YouTube. But Pinterest is launching a streaming, well, not really a streaming service. They're launching a service, a series called Pinterest TV. Now, the
is this naming, this week? Like, this feels like,
well, November 1st. So yeah, it is this week.
Wasn't there another Pinterest shopping thing though, or wasn't that last week there was one? Or
I don't know. There's like these things kind of just roll out, like, they just churn them out.
So it is. Is it in the Pinterest website?
It's on their website. It's through their mobile app, right?
Okay.
So think of it. It's almost like the equivalent of QVC, but specifically available on Pinterest, iOS and Android apps. If they roll out to mobile, to the website, to mobile web or desktop web, that probably wouldn't be a stretch, but I think it's a little bit easier of more of a native experience if it's on iOS and Android. So the naming convention is kind of slightly misleading, because I think in the way things are now, it's like if you have TV, you have Plus or Max or anything like that, they assume you're like a Netflix type of play. As of right now, this doesn't seem to be like a streaming type of play. Pinterest TV is essentially will be a weekday, will air a new show every weekday, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's it. It's just a fixed time, and it's going to star a specific creator that specializes in fashion, beauty, home, food, and other topics, right? And then specifically on Fridays, that's where you get the ability to shop. All right. So that's where the QVC type of tie-in comes in, right? And I think with Pinterest, that's kind of like that's an area, that's just an app that's known for being more of a shopping type of play. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily go to, like, I don't think going to Facebook is the place where I'm like, oh, I can buy this table.
I bought a bunch of random nonsense from Facebook.
But have you ever thought, like, when you're looking for places to decorate your office or to decorate, whatever, do you think about going to Pinterest, right, to do that, right? I think for me, when I bought my home, when I was thinking about how I wanted to decorate and types of like kitchen tables or whatever, like I would go to Pinterest for ideas, right? And so those that go to Pinterest for those type of ideas or scrapbooking or whatever, they will go to get that. They will draw inspiration and then maybe make that purchase. Right? There's probably a higher likelihood for people to make that purchase. So,
well, we know that from those stats that YouTube shared, that folks are highly likely to actually purchase from from that authentic sort of like creator experience when live.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of what it's looking like. You can see on the screen here from this Verge article, a screenshot from. It's like a full bleed video. And then, obviously native integration. So as we talked about before, as you mentioned, Greg, like e-commerce is going to be a big thing. Everyone's having a play on it. We'll be talking about e-commerce a little bit more. But I mean, this will be worth paying attention to. Certainly, like I said earlier, don't discount Pinterest. They've making a lot of moves in terms of shopping, and maybe that's going to be something that'll appeal to creators as opposed to trying to having Pinterest do a keep up with the Joneses type of thing against, their cousins.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But speaking of commerce, what do we talk about with Facebook and Snap? I mean, they had their earnings last week, and they revealed that they took some heavy hits due to Apple's iOS privacy tracking.
Yeah, for sure. It's Meta, you idiots.
Well, wait, but it's technically they call themselves Facebook calls themselves Meta, but there's actually another Meta company. There's actually so Meta's suing, like, is saying, hey,
actually, is Meta the name for everything now, or like is
Meta's
Facebook,
Alphabet? Meta's like the equivalent of Alphabet.
Is Facebook going to be getting like the Meta icon now, or is it staying the
Facebook
FB?
the app? Facebook the app will still remain Facebook, but the parent company is called Meta.
All right, so then this article is Meta, then no?
Well, then that's splitting hairs. It's like, how long before like the press and most people start to convert it? Like I still call it Facebook. It's like, how do you change it overnight, right? It's like you got to bear, it's going to take some time before that happens.
Now the interesting thing here, Ken, though, is that the reason that these two took a hit was because of the privacy changes that Apple made, right? Like, so they switched to a much more sort of like privacy secure mode, like where they don't allow tracking and cookies across things. And that was like a pretty critical part, from what I understand, about like Facebook Pixels, and I guess Snap was doing similar things, right? But it seems like the way that they're trying to attack this now is they're like, well, there's this extra 30% we can get after now because Apple can't force us to pay them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is kind of relates to another article, which we might as well dive into a little bit right after this. You're right. I think the Apple's, like, on one hand, Apple's what they call app tracking transparency, which is this iOS change that's supposed to give the users more control over who's tracking them, or awareness of who's tracking them, right? And so these companies need to get consent from users saying, hey, yes, I want to enable cookies so Facebook can blah blah blah, or Snap can do all this stuff. It's depends on which side of the table you're on. Do you support saying, hey, yes, user privacy, or do you support, well, you're hurting advertisers, blah blah blah, and everything like that? So this is certainly impacting, obviously, Facebook and Snap. They're obviously big, they rely heavily on it. Peloton when they announced earnings today, said they're being impacted by this. Twitter, not so much by this, but it's not as if Facebook's hurting for money. Let's be honest, right? I mean, they're making billions of dollars anyways, or hopefully they have a bunch of it stockpiled. Although they're probably investing a bunch of it into their metaverse play. But I think they need to find other ways to monetize their platform and show that they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. I think this is the folly of a lot of people who go to like a freemium-esque type of model, where like, yeah, we're supported by ads, and then this type of stuff comes into play, where a big obstacle such as Apple comes into it. Like, Greg, to almost like what you did when you were running Shoot, right? And Instagram said, haha, we're going to implement this API change, and you're like, well, you got to find some way to try and survive the impact. And it's a lot of other things as well. So, I mean, this is the type of thing that a lot of companies and a lot of creators are going to have to deal with. But to this commerce standpoint, right? Let me see if I can find this article. Actually, here on November 3rd, Mark Zuckerberg announced this kind of like this new type of these new features, right, that are coming soon. To Greg, what you're talking about, this 30% fee, right? It's like, this post is, as we build for the metaverse, we're focused on unlocking opportunities for creators to make money from their work. The 30% fees that Apple takes on transactions make it harder to do that. So we're updating our subscriptions product so now creators can earn more. And so Zuckerberg announced 3 new changes. First one is launching a promotional link for creators using a subscription offering. So basically, what this means is that when your fans subscribe using that to your content using that link, you as a creator will keep all the money. There's no minus the tax, and I'm guessing taxes could be Facebook's take, or just the general federal, state, local taxes. I'm not entirely sure.
No, I'm assuming that they just mean he's just covering his ass. That like,
Facebook's own.
So to some degree, like I know YouTube, for example, automatically has to withhold taxes.
Okay.
When they pay creators, if you for the income you generate in the U.S., even if you're like a foreign individual. So I think like he's just pointing out that he didn't probably being careful that they don't give the false impression that everything you get is what you owe.
Okay, so taxes don't mean like in, I guess, the
Not a Facebook
colloquial.
tax.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's like a Facebook tax. I think they mean it literally like governmental tax.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. And then there's a couple other things such as data, more like data portability for creators. So you're gonna have ownership of your audience, which I think is a great thing. But I mean,
so here's the thing. I
give little credence to Facebook about this.
I was talking to two problems with this, right? I was talking to I forgot who I was DMing with earlier today or yesterday about this, but number one, it's only the people who subscribe. Mm-hmm. So if 99% of your audience is not subscribed, you still don't actually have the data on those people, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't have all the data on those people, right? Like you only have their email address, right? And so like where's the actual value? It's the other data that Facebook has accrued about your audience that they sell to advertisers. So if they really were giving them ownership, they would provide them with the extended version of that data, not just the email address.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really like, it seems, I don't doubt that Facebook could roll out these opportunities to leverage creators, whether it's doing some sort of a shopping play or a subscription play or anything like that. I think it's a little bit more one-sided in favor of Facebook. Regardless of whatever it does, is like majority of the money will go to Facebook, I think, as opposed to, it'd be like, hey, Facebook, you can do some sort of a shopping play and creators be like, great, but I don't think it went out.
Ken, they pointed out in another article or thing when they launched, what was the other one with Meet? Maybe it was, but they were like, we're deferring our fee for a year. They haven't actually said what the fee would be though, right? Mm-hmm. In a year, right? So they created like this $1 billion fund basically to absorb those fees, right?
Yeah.
But in 2023, when the fees come back, or they're still going to be 30%, right? Yeah. Like, or what? I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just saying, like, they haven't also provided that much clarity on what's going to happen after this sort of like, land grab period where they try to just keep people and recruit as many into it.
Yeah. I mean, this is something worth watching. This is not going to be Apple's. iOS change will be long lasting. It's not as if they're going to be like, oh, iOS 16. Well, we're just going to get rid of whatever change we did and make everything better. Like they may modify it a bit, but I mean, this is still, if Apple's going to go head over heels in terms of supporting user privacy, or at least that's what their marketing campaign has been. Like a lot of these companies will have to, realize like, how do we make money without having access to so much user data, right? And and that could
they'll recreate it, right?
Yeah.
I think like there's just going to have to be a project now for folks to sort of create and manage their own their own data, which I endorse conceptually.
Shall we talk about Patreon?
Sure.
You sound so enthusiastic. You're like, oh, Patreon.
Well, this article, I don't think they were like, he wasn't, this was from the information call, I think, right? Or conference?
It was Information Creator Economy Summit. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't quite jump on it, or at least that wasn't my recollection of it.
Mm-hmm. It almost seemed like this, and so for those that are listening, this is the headline here is Patreon confirms it's exploring crypto as a way for creators to make money. So I think this is very much hedging, and on not just from the article, right? I think it's news certainly, but I think from like Jack Conte, Julian Gutman, who were on stage, or the virtual stage, so to speak, for the information conference. I mean, it's kind of be like, yeah, you have to respond in that type of affirmative when it comes to these type of things. I mean, it's like, are you
looking at say no, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think because I think creators are interested in those type of things. But if
Yeah.
you're absolutely going to say no, it's garbage, then it's garbage. But it's like if you're potentially looking to go public, right, and you want to gain more creators and subscribers and users or whatever onto your platform, of course you're going to say you're exploring. Then that covers your ass for gives you a cover fire for I don't know how many more weeks or months. And then you could say, yes, we're launching this service, or no, we decided this is not the best move for us, right? But there's this interesting quotes here from, let's take Jack Conte here. Quote, what I will say about crypto and NFTs in general is that I really love the idea of creators owning their media and owning their content. Well, no duh, that kind of fits in with Patreon's whole MO type of thing. He goes on to say, I love the ideas of creators having leverage and control. I love the idea of creators owning their audience data instead of platforms. I love the idea of a lot of this underlying infrastructure empowering creators for independence. I love the idea, he really loves the idea apparently, of shifting power away from institutions and towards individual creative people. I think that's what a lot of this technology is getting at, and I think that is really deeply exciting. And what I think is really deeply exciting about it, end quote. So I mean, sure. Let's see what happens
in our Slack, right? Like, there's a discussion going on about this as well. And, Matt was pointing out, he said that the current Web3 landscape doesn't seem to be favoring creators in any way. And I think there's, I think the point that Matt is making is that we are seeing sort of the same large entities sort of pool into this universe. And then Abhinav actually makes, I think a really good point though, and I'll quote it here. Hope it's okay, Abhinav. But he said that Web3 doesn't negate the clout of big brands. It just makes it easier for individuals and small groups to harness clout from communities that believe in what they're doing. So, and I think, and the final point he does make though is just that Web3 and the creator economy are related, but not necessarily accompanying. And I think that's right, which is that we're like, as far as I can tell, like in a 2.5 state, right? Like, and what that really means is that the traditional revenue models that platforms previously had are being re-platformed now to creators, right? So, like you look at what like all of us are building, are really like first-person monetization tools that really emulate like, hey, how did Facebook make money? Oh, let's give you those opportunities. How did Twitch make money? Let's give you the person those opportunities. Now, the Web3 parts, right, I think are really more speaking to, I think the backlash, not the backlash necessarily, but maybe like a recognition of the value that our audience does play in the process, right? But also at the same time, access to a new pool or new revenue models that could potentially support a creator, which is why I think the creator economy is embracing Web3. I don't think Web3 exists to service the creator economy per se. I think it's just a thing that can be adapted into that ecosystem to do well, right? So they're not overlapping, they're not like parallel processes. I just think that like, and to some degree, like it's opportunistic, right? Like creator economy is like, hey, let's pretend that the existing infrastructure is totally buggered and there's no way for us to actually get leverage out of it. What would we do? Great. Web3 may be like the place where we can survive in a new way. At the same time, and then the majority of folks are still basically living off of the teat of kind of like Web 2 and this sort of transitionary state of, like what I'll just call like repatriating sort of like the revenue tools of Web 2 to the creator level.
Yeah, Web3 just happens to be the right place at the right time, right? I mean, it's like, I think if Web, like...
And by the way, it's not the right thing for most creators, right? Like, probably.
Yeah. One final thing to note about this is that Patreon says that they're looking at creator coins, supporting
that
them.
Makes the most sense to me.
But they're not working on one right now.
No, and that's reasonable. I think like actually, Ken, we have the other article for After Party.
Yes.
Which sort of goes into this area also. But I think like the coins represent, like to my earlier point, I feel like they represent this opportunity that like speaks to this sort of transition thing, right? Because the coins can have a financial value, right? Like you could sell them or you could transact them and then convert them to dollars, right? But they also have like a community value, which I think is like the hedge here, right? Like, so the real question is, like, if you think about the better value or use cases in my mind of like NFTs is probably around like the utility use cases, not like the art use cases, right? Like, so to what extent does membership in a community, participation in a community sort of lead to or drive sort of new kinds of, engagement, relationships, and of course, commerce, right? That's what I think we're still exploring. And right now we have like a number of companies coming up that are like enabling these coin experiments, at least, right? Like at the creator level, but they're not really creator specific. They're just like, who has an audience, that is meaningful, that might value something like this. And that can be used in all kinds of places. We call them creator coins, but they're not actually creator coins. They're just tokens that could be used to tokenize probably anything technically, right? Like, so we've got Rally, obviously, where we have our coin. We have, what's the other one called? Roll, I think it's called, which is another sort of big competitor. And then now this company, Afterparty, just what did they raise? $3 million?
$3 million, yeah.
Right. And what do? They basically let creators roll their own tokens and issue their own NFTs. Like, so yeah, like these are all experiments, but like, unless you have enough people to experiment with, like it's kind of a fruitless sort of activity, right? Like again, so it's a game that's great for like the folks with really large audiences, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to take some time, right? Now, as with all of these things, the earlier you experiment, the faster you learn the things that work or don't work. But at the same time, the things that work may be like future iterations of the things that we're trying now. And then like, they may be completely unrelated as well. Right. Yeah. Like, so who knows, but yeah, I think it's interesting that we're seeing this.
I mean, I think, again, this is kind of like what I've been saying before. And there's a lot of these services that are out there, and this is nothing new. Like I think this is every age of technology. You see these type of things where there's a plethora of these services, and you're like, do we need these many services, right? Now, for example, Afterparty and Rally and Roll and all these other, they're all kind of allowing the production of these creator coins. I'm curious in terms of like, how do you stand out? Like, how does this, like,
who's the you there, Ken?
I'm sorry?
Who's the you when you say, how do you stand out?
How do these companies stand out amongst the rest? Like, because they're all fighting for the same thing. Because I mean, obviously, Greg, you started the AMA coin on Rally, but how does, like, why would Afterparty come after you and say, hey, Greg, would you be interested in doing a creator coin? Another, like, it's not as if you can transfer AMA to Afterparty, I'd imagine.
No,
right?
You have to start over. Yes, that's true.
But
that's actually the thing, right? So I think it's probably less about, there's still more net new people to onboard than to try to convert people. Now, obviously, converting customer in general, right? Like acquiring a new customer tends to be more expensive than keeping an existing one, right? But this may not be the case in crypto coins, right? Because the switching costs are somewhat significant. Like you'd have to move a significant amount of dollars and attention and other things over to a new place. But I don't think these guys are worried about any of that right now, right? Like we still have 50 million plus creators.
Yeah.
We've got 30,000, 40,000 or somewhere in that area just in the US on YouTube who've got more than, 100,000 subs, right? So when you look at it from that, but you got 250,000 people on Patreon, right? Like who are generating revenue most likely. So you've got lots of opportunity yet, right? Like to still go and deploy with people who've never done this before.
But there's an education issue at play here, right? And it's on the creators and the fans and the fan side as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I don't think like it's easy to launch a coin, right? Like I think like, for example, when we first got the coin, the AMA coin, it sort of languished for a while because we weren't really doing anything with it. It was only till we had a show and we could start to like activate and bring it into the audience that starts to make more sense, right? And now like we see the coin growing, but I think, you do have to work at these things, right? Like you don't get a coin for free. Now, again, like, I'm a big fan of Twitch because I feel like what Twitch has done well is indoctrinate a very, very large swath of people to like coin type economics, right? Like, so, in Switch, in Twitch, you're constantly earning channel points. There's these ideas of bits going on. So I think like, and this is an interesting trend line, that as gaming permeates out into more of the world, that behavior doesn't seem so odd, right? Like, so like if you're a musician launching a coin, you're probably like hitting some gamer types too who will get it. And then a lot of communities, they work by example, right? So if you can get a few people to sort of embrace this idea and start to play with it, then I think you start to spread it. But it's not easy to get a coin to go. It takes a lot of work. Everyone I know who has a coin that is successful does a shit ton of stuff, like around the coin, to create the incentive structures, to create the motivations, to market the use of it, to encourage the sales of it, to drive the utilization of it. So there's just a lot. There's a lot of pieces. This is what I mean by like, to be in crypto is not the same as to be in community, is not the same to actually be customer facing. And so unfortunately, those are all big roles for a solopreneur creator to be stepping into at any point in time.
Yeah, and I don't discount any of that. I'm just like, I'm thinking like, for example, like this here in this article, it says, that they're creating a decentralized tool using Web3 technologies to provide creators with the tools to monetize and manage their fan relationships, deliver live virtual experiences, and sell digital merchandise. Creators can mint and launch their own NFTs on the platform within minutes. I think, and just summarizing this, I think if you are a company that's pitching this to a creator and say, hey, you create a creator coin and you'll be able to do X, Y, and Z, all these features. It's like, on one hand, you have to educate the creator and say, hey, this is why this is important. But then you also have to, there's a lot of education that I think there's a lot of that should, a huge part should be responsible from on the part of the platforms to say, hey, after party, rally, roll, whoever should also be going out and educating the public and helping supplement the education from creators such as ourselves, saying, hey, this is what the importance of a creator coin is. Because at one point, like, you and I can talk until we're blue in the face and say, hey, this is what an AMA coin's, buy our AMA coin, hold our AMA coin. And our diehard fans will support it, but then not, some of the people that are listening on Twitter Spaces or watching us on YouTube or whatever, they may not really grok what the hell a creator coin is. And like, why am I investing in this? As opposed to, can I just tip you?
Well, and by the way, I don't know if you should choose one way or the other. Look, I think you're right, Ken. Like, fundamentally, these changes in modalities for like how to operate your business, I think, are big and important, but they're hard, right? And so there is a lot of education that does have to happen, and there's a lot of worry. I think like what one risk a creator runs right now is potentially trying to embrace too many of these things, right? So like, if you want to sell something for money, you should work to create and deliver value and also be able to support those customers. That's like a customer-oriented mindset. If you want to build a community where people are going to chat with each other and they're sort of going to like build relationships, et cetera, you should focus on being a great community manager and doing the work that's required there. If you want to like play cryptographer, right? Like, and you want to issue coins and you want to create something that has more long-term or lasting value, then you have to go do the work to do that, right? So probably the caution I would give is to not dip your toe into too many of these pieces, unless you absolutely need it, right? Arnold did have a good question. He says, like, should creators be worried about being locked into a particular token platform? I think to the extent, Arnold, that there's sidechain conversations, right? Like, so like, for example, Rally's issued as a side chain currently, right? Later, we may have our own tokens. So I think like, to the extent that creator coins or social tokens are existing, as a side chain on top of another thing, then yes, there is like sort of an inherent lock-in, right? Because your things exist there. If what these token platforms, and they probably will get to this, it's just I think there's costs and other things associated with it. But if you do get to a point where your token is being issued directly, right, then the lock-in is you're probably paying more of like a management fee, like a registered agent fee to these companies, kind of like you do to like incorporate in Delaware and have someone just be able to receive your mail for you. But someone to help you manage like your tokenomics and a bunch of other things. That's where I think you probably are, where we probably end up in the longer term with this. But right now, yes, the sidechain oriented things are definitely, they have some degree of lock-in for sure.
Cool. Why don't we talk about this interesting report, Greg, from Streamlabs?
Yeah, so Streamlabs, if you don't know, does these quarterly reports actually on sort of like what's going on in the streamer economy. And there's a number of interesting stats in here. The one that excites me the most as the purveyor of a brand new just chatting platform is basically that just chatting one day for the quarter is now the most popular category. Wow. Most watched category across all live streaming platforms, by the way. So that's like all three of them. 707 million hours watched in Q3. Pretty freaking crazy. The Twitch is still, at the top of the list, right? So, the top 10 channels accounted for 290.7 million hours of watch time in Q3. Pretty crazy, right? Approximately 5% of the total Twitch watch hours. So just 10 channels got 5% of the watch hours. It's pretty insane.
You know what's interesting about this chart, though, Greg, is if you took the data from that was leaked a few weeks ago, and you took it again and you stacked that against the Streamlabs top 10 channels on Twitch chart, I wonder what the correlation would be. Like the highest earning Twitch streamers versus the top 10 channels.
Well, certainly. To the extent that advertising drives revenue, right? There's some correlation potentially, but it also depends on the game you play, the audience makeup, right? Like, so CPMs aren't horizontally even. They're still going to depend on channel by channel. So I think like being the most watched channel doesn't necessarily have to correlate with being the most profitable channel by any stretch. What the other interesting stat that they did point out here, though, is that Facebook Gaming, or should we say metagaming, is the only platform to experience an increase in hours watched in Q3. And Facebook actually overtook YouTube Gaming this quarter. So pretty interesting, right? Twitch's just chatting was the most watched category across all live streaming platforms. Like just Twitch's just chatting. And then for the first time, Twitch experienced year-over-year decrease in the number of unique channels streaming on the platform.
This is very trippy data. Like, I mean, it's like, wow, to take a look at this. And this is obviously not the first report that Streamlabs has done on this, but I mean, it's kind of interesting to a nice little point in time type of reflection about where live streaming is going. And especially, but of course, this is specifically with gaming, right? This is not necessarily live streaming for other topics. Although, I mean, obviously, gaming is going to be one of the top, I guess, verticals, if you call it, for live streaming. I mean, what else would you? What is more popular than gaming in terms of live streaming? Maybe news, commentary. I don't know. Live events.
Well, you mean like on Twitch itself, though,
or just in general? Like what? Like gaming?
Is there some content type outside of games?
Yeah, because Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, obviously.
Right? Like, so it's movies, right? Yeah, would probably be the next biggest. Sports would probably likely be another large category.
Yeah, but I mean, this is you look at these stats just for gaming, and then you look at the potential, maybe the potential could be for other things like food, cooking, travel. I mean,
the advantage gaming has is that the content like makes itself, right? Like, like if you're cooking, it's very difficult to like cook for 8 hours straight, which is very different than say like just gaming for 8 hours, right? Like, now I've never gamed for 8 hours straight, or not like in ages, right? But you know what I mean? Like, so I think like there's something self-fulfilling about like gaming as a format, because like you also couldn't play like a basketball game for like 8 hours straight, right?
Yeah.
So there are some like unique attributes, I think, to gaming that do service provided this opportunity over other things for sure.
Yeah.
And you like, I think you just chatting is like, seems like a highly scalable, generally speaking, right? As long as you have fans and you have an audience and you have, folks to talk to.
You should launch a chatting service, just chatting for gaming.
A good idea. I think we should do that.
Yeah. Sure. Why don't we just pivot right now? Just scrap everything that you're doing. Forget it. Forget Zealous. Let's work on chatting. Hey, you can pivot. I mean, keep the same name. It's all the same thing, right?
Well, Zealous is the just chatting part of of Twitch. So I think we're already in the right place.
Yeah. I think, okay, so we covered the Facebook. Sorry, we're all jumping around here, so got to keep track. Hard to keep track of all these articles that we have here. But let's jump back to Facebook for a second here. Small little update, not like something that everyone needs to be sweating over. But Facebook had their community summit event. I think it was this week, so I think it was like yesterday or something. Oh, it was on the 4th. And so what they announced is this ability to further monetize your groups and
which is huge, right? Facebook groups is probably like, my guess is second to your friends, like actual family and friends. Groups is extremely powerful and dominant. There's like something like 300,000 plus groups, I think, or something on Facebook. And people really get a lot out of being in those groups. Like, and here's the thing, like people have tried to make alternatives to Facebook groups and like, it ends up that Facebook groups is still like really good at what it does.
Well, it's also the network effect. I mean, that's at the very end of, you can say like, like Mighty Networks has, virtual ponies, right? But it's at the end of the day where you want to connect with other people and build better relationships. It's going to be Facebook. It's a double-edged sword. You're on Facebook because you make for the network effects, but you don't want to be on Facebook because of all the other garbage that's on there, right? But for those that are running groups on Facebook, you're going to be able to monetize in multiple ways now, additional ways, right? Shopping and fundraising, which is nothing new to the Facebook platform or Meta platform, whatever you want to call it. But I think the big news here is that the subscription feature. And so, looks like my camera just died.
I think there's a setting to turn that off, Ken.
Is there?
Yeah.
Well, we'll switch over to this backup camera here.
This time
that never happened.
Just didn't do that one. All right.
I have no idea how my the Sony camera all of a sudden is like.
You are using the Cam Link now, and so I think it when it's at 720, it doesn't push as much through the camera.
All right. Well, I have to figure that out, troubleshoot that, anyways. But I'm going to blame censorship. Like, again, every episode, Greg tries to usher me out of this conversation, and that was his subtle way of doing it. But anyway, sorry. Getting back to this. Subgroups. You're going to be able to have paid subgroups on Facebook. And so this is almost like an exclusive club. It's like a group within a group. And so your audience, your members can pay a specific fee. And I think it's entirely up to the group admins and to join it. And then you can limit how many people you want to have on there, obviously. So, it's a monthly fee. You can have it be free. So it doesn't have to be paid, but you can have a free subgroup if you want. And so, look, I think if you want to have deeper conversations with people, right? If you want to, like, we could have a creator economy group on Facebook if we want, and then we could have a smaller subgroup specifically for like founders or, NFTs or whatever. So it's almost like you can build like a
That's sort of how we're using Slack now, I guess, right?
Yeah. But it's all a matter of like, how many people do you want to have? Like, how many people are willing to use Facebook versus something else or anything like that? So, but look, I think great move. nice opportunity for people to build bigger communities and have more intimate conversations if they so want to do and are willing to pay for it. So, all right, Instagram. Again, small little update here. Well, small is the relative term here. You're going to be able to add your stickers. What this means is you're going to be able to contribute to other people's stories. And this is the first time that's ever happened. So, Greg, you can put out something. You can post a story. You can post an Instagram story.
That's a horrible idea.
Well, it depends on who you are. Like, for example, for creators, great, right? It's like, hey, if you're a creator and you're like, hey, and you post the stories.
I always thought add yours was about adding photos to a thing. So you're saying it was for stickers?
No. It is the add yours is a sticker that you apply to your story. So as a creator,
right? Okay. Yeah.
So Greg, you have your show coming up.
I don't know. Something about naming something add yours just feels too close.
I know. Yeah, it's a naming is. Woo-hoo, I don't know. But the name, it kind of is somewhat self-explanatory. But Greg, let's take the fact that you're doing a show, your body show next week, right? You could put out an Instagram story, a post saying, whatever, and then here, and then add yours, showing, your fitness routine or whatever, right? And then I could show my fitness routine, like me on my Peloton bike, Abhinav can show him running or whatever, and like just kind of show these type of things out, and it'd be like a community type of story as a result. And it's just beneficial for those that have large followings and are publicly doing stories, right? So they can build more of a community.
Like this is sort of like the UGC angle on
exactly, yeah,
on stuff, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I saw this once on somebody I followed, and if you're looking at this, watching us live, this image from Instagram, you see on the one hand, it's like you see the add your sticker, and then on the right hand, you kind of see what it looks like. It kind of feels like, okay, wait. So I see other people who have contributed to this story, but you don't see their post right away. So it's like, my first expectation was like I would be able to click through and see other people's stuff, right? So Greg, you post yours, and then I could cycle through and I could see all of our mutual friends or whatever, and say, oh, here's mine, here's so and so's, here's so and so's. But you kind of see more of just the people, their Instagram profiles that have contributed. So if you tap on it,
it's not ideal, but I guess it kind of makes sense being inside of like a story to begin with,
But if but you as a creator, I would imagine you would see
you probably have
their
it in your
stories.
So.
Yeah, but the public that are seeing this is like, if I click on, for example, Sapphire Blue is _19, am I being taken to their profile? Then I have to click on their story. But what happens if they have a private account? It's like, I don't know. It's a little bit unclear. They don't necessarily delineate that, but look, I think bravo to that. Bravo to Instagram. Nice way to build community, especially since Instagram's suffering from a lack of youth users these days. This could be a nice way to be saying, hey, hello, you fellow kids. Let's, join us and take a look and see what's cool on Instagram now. So, all right. Do we want to talk about attention economy, Bitly, or Twitter next? We are running low on time.
Never, go for it.
All right, we'll get right into the I think one of the biggest stories here of the week. Bitly, Greg. You and I were a race to put this into our list this week.
So look, I think number one, this seems like such a duh thing. Like, why didn't Bitly have this like from the beginning? But basically, they have launched their own link in bio tool. What's it called? Link Discovery or some Launchpad? Link
Launchpad. Yep.
Right. It's just it's another tool in the ecosystem of link in bio things. They our friends at Koji get mentioned, Linktree, Beacons, all in here. Now the main value prop I see here is just like friction, right? Like, hey, I believe them when they say that people were coming to us to shorten links so that they could track them, and then they were putting them into a link in bio tool, and so we can just drop it out. A link in bio tool is not a hard tool to make. You can make it in a day. like a dumb version of it, at least, right? Like in basically a day. So I don't imagine that this is a particularly difficult thing to do. I don't know that this is going to be sort of accretive to revenue. Like, would I start paying Bitly the $29 a month it costs, which I still find amazing, for their basic plan, right? Like, would I start paying because of that feature? Like, probably not, right? But my guess is that Bitly has a tremendous amount of free users, and they could be, a meaningful competitor here, it seems. Now, how well do they get creators? How well do they sort of understand like the nuance of like, like just design and like sort of like expressing this and the things that people want, right? I don't know. Like Bitly doesn't really live in that realm too much as far as I can tell, right? So I think there's a lot that working against that, or there's a lot for them to overcome, let's say, right, to be successful.
Look, I think the Bitly's play. Look, I think this is an effort for Bitly to remain relevant in the conversation. I mean, look, everyone wants to be able to share links, at least share memorable links, as opposed to long queries, long string queries, which nobody will ever remember. So I think you see certainly a rise of plenty of link in bio type of things. Bitly has certainly read the tea leaves. It's, as we've talked about with many of our guests, about the promise of that one line that's in your Instagram profile, that's in your Facebook feed or in your LinkedIn, wherever you're going to put that link in bio. That's certainly relevant. It's I kind of equate this to like Microsoft entering the social media space, right? It's like, they kind of toyed around with it, and now they're just kind of putting their full weight into it, and we'll see how it plays out. I see Bitly's intent as catering more towards businesses, brands, corporate users, and less to the young creators themselves, right? The fledgling creators.
If they're going after like B2B sort of link in bio, maybe, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, certainly there's, like, for example, the basic plan costs $29 per month. You got to be pretty active, link sharer in that. I mean, it's like,
you have to be a marketer, right? Like, why else would you be paying $30 a month to shorten links unless it's because you actually care about the analytics and the tracking?
Yeah. I think early creators are like, it's almost like how Slack got its foot in the door into companies, is through the grassroots, right? And Linktree, Koji have all have followed that similar playbook, right? They've made it easy for creators to do this. It's like, oh, link in bio, that's kind of become a common thing, right? And so Bitly is a bit late to the game. I mean, a bit late to appeal to creators, though I think they've done a phenomenal job in terms of tracking links and making it social media friendly. I think though that they're going to have their work cut out for them in terms of trying to say, hey, creators, try use us as opposed to these other guys. It's kind of like they're marching up a steep hill, I think. But they've been around for 13. Oh God, I think 13 years has it been? Yeah, 13 years. So they could potentially do it. I don't know. Worth paying attention to.
I doubt it, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Twitter. Oh, this. Greg. I keep saying you should probably have worked for Twitter and Twitter APIs. Like actually, like help write the APIs. I mean, because what was it like a few months ago? We're talking about Twitter Spaces API, and then all of a sudden, hey, we have an API coming out for Twitter Spaces, and now they're doing an API for, an API for posting and deleting tweets, super follows, and more. It's like, we should, these things aren't unexpected though, right? I mean, but why? I mean, you posted this one, so why don't you walk us through this?
So I think Twitter has been going through sort of a revamp of their fundamental APIs and sort of like changing the business model around it, changing the sort of organizational model around it. This just new release is it's incremental, relatively speaking, but I do believe they're continuing to catch up with the representation of the tools that they have relative to the API. So I think like just the important part is to see that, for example, I believe like super follows and things like that are now being sort of registered and tracked in the APIs. From what I understand, Twitter actually uses these APIs to build these tools, and then they're then releasing them into the ecosystem as well for others to use. So I think it's nice to see that there's some sort of parity sort of happening, I guess, right? Like with the APIs as they move along. They're still missing a bunch of the APIs that I think would be the most valuable for unlocking value. But especially like around Spaces, I think Spaces is not particularly well covered. Like they're focused on discovery, which I guess I understand, but from a creator's point of view, like they're still too difficult to create. They're still basically impossible to manage. Right. And so like, as you know, right, like we have to schedule it like in between we do twice a week. We literally have to like do one, but we can't schedule the second one. And so it's like, it's making life hard for us. Right. And the same problems exist on Clubhouse and other things like that. So I think like this seems like a problem that a lot of these folks have not calibrated themselves back to yet. Right. Which is that like, while discovery is probably the predominant problem in the ecosystem at large. If you are building tools for creators, discovery is likely still servicing you more so than everything. Like you need to make it easy for us as creators to start the process. Then let's work about giving us more discovery, not the other way around, right? Because like we just don't have time to jump through these hoops to schedule, to index, to archive, to repost, and all these other things. And so the more you make it easy for the creator to do it, save them time, the more likely they will continue to create that content for you. And to that end, then your discovery tools will have more to grab onto, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like that still fundamentally feels like we're like not just Twitter, but other tools miss the mark, is they're not focused enough on the creator side of the equation. They're focused on the audience side. And it's not that side's unimportant. It's just that if you don't understand, like you fundamentally create pain for the people creating the content, then you're probably missing something important.
One thing I will point out is like, look, I think a lot of these API updates and new feeds or whatever are great for Twitter, and especially will help creators and users and developers. But the thing about Twitter, and I think this is buyer beware. I think that's the name of the game for developers. You don't know when these companies will shutter their APIs for various reasons, right? And Twitter's reputation in terms of their approach to developers hasn't necessarily been the best, right? So,
I mean,
there's like, I'm not saying they're going to do it.
Here's the thing. Twitter did screw over their developers ages ago, right? But it was a long time ago, right? I remember it was like 2005 or 6, right? Yeah. I feel like Twitter is pretty different now relative to that point of view. Now, like us who are old enough and around then, like to remember when that was happening, and like maybe it was 2007 or 8 when Chirp was on, and then they kind of made this big shift. I get it. I don't think folks should harbor that. Like, here's the thing. As someone who's built a company or a few companies on top of other people's platforms, there's always an inherent risk with that. So if you're going to build something that leverages these tools, that's your risk, right? Like, period. Like, there's no nuance around it. At any time, anybody could decide that they don't want to support an endpoint, that they don't want to support you, right? Like, that they don't want to be in business anymore. Whatever it is, you're going to have that risk. Is it in Twitter's best interest to screw over developers? No. Right. From talking to folks on their team, like I know that they believe that the innovation is going to come from the edges and they want to support and enable more of that. Twitter is using these things, right? Like to build their own tools. Now, to your point though, Ken, if Twitter decides that Spaces was a garbage idea, just like they did with Fleets or something, and, and they decide we're killing it, okay, like, That's reasonable, but that's not the same thing as them saying, "Hey, we decided we're going to keep these APIs to ourselves," right? And I think it's just an important distinction in the framing of things.
Right. I think regardless, you're right, but I think the point I want to try and emphasize here is that they would do a bigger disservice because they would not only potentially negatively impact developers, but also the creators themselves, right? For example, say Hootsuite, for example, integrates with the Twitter Spaces API, right? Or the Super Follows API, right? And then creators are, plenty of creators on Hootsuite. They use that, and then all of a sudden Twitter's like, forget it, we're gonna end our Super Follows API. It kind of harms those creators and harms the developers, right? So there's a magnification of that harm, right? I think I think it's good that Twitter's opening up their APIs to developers and creators and to the public. I would encourage Twitter to also focus on building out a lot of these tools natively as well, so that it's not just relying on, is it just a walled garden, but it's like it's open regardless of however you want to use it. There's that, these features are available across any area, because we know there's some features that are available on TweetDeck, for example, but there's not these features that are available on native Twitter, and vice versa. So it'd be great for there to be some sort of a universal type of parity, if you will, on that front. But cool. So
on that note, by the way, we are at time already.
Oh no. Damn, that hour went by fast.
It did go by fast.
Yeah.
I actually just shared the notes, by the way. So I'm gonna, before we shut the space, I will just share that into the Twitter space as well.
Sweet. Hello to everyone in Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, hi everybody. All right, Ken. Well, on that note, I think we probably have to pop because I do have to run.
Yep.
But thank you everybody for being here. We always appreciate your time and energy. If you have feedback or thoughts, feel free to shoot them over to us, and we will see you on Tuesday for office hours.
Cool.
All right, Ken. See you later. Bye, everyone.